Senator Kavashis.
I rise to speak on the Commission of Inquiry into Anti-Semitism at Australian Universities Bill 2024. I commend my friend in this place, Senator Henderson, and my friend in the other place, the member for Berowra, for their work on this incredibly important matter. And before I turn to the matter of university campuses, I just want to reflect on this point. As honourable senators would know, Julian Leeser is my good friend. I have worked with him closely for many years in his service of the people of Berowra. Julian has had to deal with many things that other members and senators would never think of, particularly during election campaigns. I remember particularly the 2019 federal election when our campaign office was vandalised and defaced with anti-Semitic symbols. After that, we had to lock ourselves in for our own safety. So in 2019 in Sydney, we had to lock ourselves into our campaign rooms for our own safety. Julian is a proud Jewish Australian, and as a result, he is targeted by hate and intimidation. Deputy President, this is something that Jewish Australians right across our country have sadly to deal with. But the clear message from the Jewish community is that this is the worst that it has been in living memory. The level of discrimination that Jewish Australians are facing at the moment is extraordinary. It is the worst that I have seen. But at its crux, this bill is responding to some disgraceful behaviour that we have seen on our university campuses. And what we are seeing is a group within our society who are facing untold amounts of discrimination on the basis of their race at Australian university campuses, places where young Australians go to learn so that they can contribute better to our society. And unfortunately, what we have seen from this government is a clear lack of appropriate action. A commission of inquiry, as proposed in this bill, is in stark contrast to the Albanese government's establishment of a racism study, a study led by the Australian Human Rights Commission into various forms of racism, a study led by the AHRC rather than Action Now. This study is a woefully inadequate response to campus anti-Semitism. The ALRC has neither the independence, powers or personnel to adequately deal with campus anti-Semitism. To make matters worse, the ALRC will not hand down its final report until after the 30th of June next year. So this is the priority with which this government gives this problem. The report is not even due until after the next federal election. That's the priority that this government has placed on it. This further reflects the government's weakness in combating anti-Semitism on university campuses. We are also concerned that the AHRC is not fit to run such a study, as we revealed in Senate estimates. It has failed to expressly condemn the Hamas terrorist attack, and its employees include individuals under investigation for anti-Semitic slurs published on social media. So let's think about that. It's important to also note that the AHRC does not have the confidence of the Jewish community. The Executive Council of Australian Jewry, the Australian Union of Jewish Students, the Australia, Israel and Jewish Affairs Council and the Australian Academic Alliance Against Anti-Semitism all reject an inquiry led by the AHRC and support a judicial inquiry. For a government that speaks frequently on the importance of consultation and co-design in social policy, it makes me wonder why they are not listening to Australia's Jewish community. Education Minister Jason Clare, who should be throwing the book at university vice-chancellors, has done very little here. He has failed to directly condemn the kids' excursion at Sydney University, which encouraged young children Let's think about this. Young children to chant anti-Israel slogans such as Intifada and participate in a march calling Israel a terrorist state. This is a school activity. This is a children's activity on an Australian university campus. These are children. I think that this is something that the Education Minister needs to reconsider. He suggested that terrorist slogans like Intifada and the slogan River to the Sea mean different things to different people. Well, they mean very bad things to Australia's Jewish community. The Minister continues to draw a false equivalence between anti-Semitism and other forms of racism, such as Islamophobia. The Minister has also failed to condemn university encampments which are fuelling anti-Semitic hate and incitement. These are Australian government-funded campuses. Can we think about that? We are funding these campuses that allow this behaviour to continue unchecked. The Coalition has consistently called out the Minister for weakness of leadership, raising concerns that he has not shown the moral courage that is needed here. This is a time for strong and clear leadership. I understand the Minister has concerns in relation to his own electorate. That's a separate matter and should not be a consideration here. On the 28th of May 2024, the Coalition announced that a coalition government would use provisions of the Migration Act to cancel visas of any student protesters found to be involved in spreading anti-Semitism or supporting terrorism, and rightly so. That should pretty much be a given, shouldn't it? Under Section 116 of the Act, the Ministers for Home Affairs and Immigration have significant powers to cancel the visas of any person who is or may be a risk to the health, safety or good order of the Australian community or any segment of the Australian community. Section 501 of the Act gives ministers the power to do so if visa holders show contempt or disregard for the law of our country, for human rights, including terrorist activities and political extremism, and for vilifying a segment of the Australian community or inciting discord in Australia. These laws already exist, and yet there is no evidence that the Minister for Home Affairs, Claire O'Neill, and Immigration Minister Andrew Giles have cancelled a single student visa under the significant powers available to them under the Migration Act. Why? Why have they not acted? How much longer will Jewish students have to fear for their safety when they go to classes at university before this government acts? Let me repeat that. How long do they have to fear for their safety before this government acts? Australia respects the democratic right to protest and free speech, but we will not tolerate racism, anti-Semitism or the public support for a terrorist organisation like Hamas. Australians are witnessing a failure of leadership from this government and some university authorities which have profoundly failed to combat anti-Semitic hate and vilification on campus. Senator Henderson's private senator's bill before the Senate today mirrors the private member's bill introduced into the House of Representatives by the member for Barara, Mr Leeser, on the 3rd of June 2024. He has been a leading voice in our parliament in fighting to combat the scourge of anti-Semitism, and I thank Senator Henderson for her work on this as well. It is regrettable that despite multiple invitations to endorse this common-sense bill, this government has provided no public acknowledgement or support for the proposal. They have completely ignored it. I think it's called ghosting. This government has provided no public acknowledgement of or support for the proposal. Members of the Coalition have directly reached out to the Attorney-General, inviting him to discuss this bill and this issue. He has not responded, despite promises to do so. On behalf of Coalition senators, Senator Henderson has taken up the fight for a judicial inquiry by way of introducing this bill into the Senate. We note with concern that Assistant Minister for Education, Senator Chisholm, said in budget estimates that the government would not support a judicial inquiry into anti-Semitism on university campuses. Why? And especially why, since this time, the situation at many universities has become worse. This government needs to act. The situation at universities includes the endorsement of horrific actions of Hamas by some academics and students, classroom invasions where those who don't support activist causes are photographed and vilified for evidence, like something from the 1930s. Think about it. If you don't do what they want and if you don't stand with them, they'll take your photo and they'll use it for something down the track. It's extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary, and it's happening on Australian university campuses, taxpayer-funded campuses. In the face of this weak leadership from the Albanese government against anti-Semitism on campus, the Coalition will keep fighting for what is right. The Coalition will not tolerate universities becoming a law unto themselves.